Yo, this is Cairo, and yesterday I watched the Nuggets versus Timberwolves game, and I really wanted to give my coverage on it just because of the fact that I haven't watched both of these teams that much this season or in the playoffs, so I really wanted to give my opinion, and I was completely wrong about this series. I had this series going to 7 and the Nuggets winning. I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I was completely wrong about this series. I thought that because of the Nuggets' previous success, they wouldn't have as much success this season, especially because I thought Gobert and Cat would finally do something, but I should have expected that nothing would have happened after Gobert punched Kyle Anderson, and I just felt like Mike Malone's defensive strategies were not as consistent, but this game he really adjusted and they played really well. One of the bigger reasons I had this game going to 7 or the series going to 7 is because of the fact that Mike Malone throughout the season hasn't had great defensive lineups, and he's had players who are very savvy and defensive guys, but he doesn't put them out there because potentially offensively they're not as gifted as other guys. But the Nuggets did go on a pretty sizable losing streak in the season, and a big part of that was Mike Malone's defensive lineups. But in this game, he ran Aaron Gordon at backup center. He played Christian Braun. He played Bruce Brown. Now, I'm not sure if he's played them previous games because I'm not even going to lie. I haven't watched previous games of this series, so I wouldn't know. But from this series and from this game, I watched that he played better defensive guards out there, and it really helped them propel them to take a 3-0 lead. I also just wanted to give a shout out to Jamal Murray. His game is so fluid and it's so fun to watch. He plays like a veteran. He knows how to play, but he can take over the game at any time, and it's pretty fun to watch. And in terms of Michael Porter Jr., he had a really good game out there, but I honestly feel like, I know this is kind of like weird to say because of how good Michael Porter Jr. is, but there are some moments where I feel like he might shoot himself out of the game just because of the fact that he literally just doesn't pass. Like, if he gets the ball, he's shooting it. Like, he does not see any shot that he doesn't think is good. And, when you can hit those shots, you're a really good player. But there are moments where I feel like against better defensive teams, he's going to struggle and he's just going to chuck up a bunch of shots, which then becomes into the conversation of who on the bench could really fill his role. But that's for the other rounds. The Nuggets played really well this game. They were getting out in transition fast. They had Bruce Brown and Christian Braun playing good defense out there. They were really giving each other confidence, which is really why I like Jokic as a player, because he can get his teammates involved and get him involved in ways where they can be more confident in themselves, and then late in the game he can take over when it's closer. They were running lots of pick and fade actions where they would give the ball to KCP, set the screen, and KCP is a very good fading shooter, and he was hitting shots. He was also playing good defense, so shout out to KCP for that one. And yeah, the Nuggets were just really out there defensively. They were holding. It seems as though, like, when the Timberwolves were really cutting into the lead, I remember it was like a one possession late in the game, and it seemed as though the Timberwolves just couldn't close that gap. They just couldn't tie the game or couldn't take the lead, and the Nuggets just capitalized. Like, every time they got close, they got back to 10 points. Timberwolves would cut it to 3. Nuggets immediately put it back up to 10 points. But yeah, the Nuggets played really well. There's nothing really much to say about the Nuggets. We already know how they're going to play. They're a very savvy team. They can get shots going up fast. Jokic will get his teammates involved. They have better defensive lineups out there. But in terms of the Timberwolves, mainly Anthony Edwards, he was doing everything out there. He was really putting his heart and soul into this game. And he even said it in his post-game press conference where he says, it's not a series going to 3, it's a series going to 4. We got this. So you got to respect him for that. Dude had like 34 points. He was crashing the glass. He was getting rebounds. He was playing amazing defense, and he was hustling. And his team, honestly, the Timberwolves just seemed very slow out there. Like, they looked like they were just trying to force the inside to, like, Cat or sometimes even Gobert, and then the Nuggets would easily pick it off. What I also noticed that the Wolves tried to do, and they do this a lot, is that they try to penetrate inside the paint and then kick it out baseline. But there's always one defender on the Nuggets that can read it easily, like Bruce Brown. And they read it easily. He really played his heart out, Anthony Edwards. But everybody else just seemed lackluster. Like, Cat, he, in this entire series from the stats that I'd heard, he hasn't been shooting that well from the 3-point line. And then I also forgot the fact that the Timberwolves don't have a backup center. Naz Reid is very good, but I'm pretty sure he's out with injury. So it's hard to do that, and it's hard to play without a backup center. And then the Timberwolves were also, they couldn't keep control of the ball. Like, they just kept turning the ball over. I know Mike Conley's old, but I expect him, to be that facilitator of the team. To carry the offense, like, on a facilitating standpoint, and then have Anthony Edwards carry them on the offensive scoring load. Overall, I'm kind of disappointed in the Timberwolves. I expected a bigger matchup, but, got to give credit to Mike Malone and the Denver Nuggets. They've been playing better, especially with these defensive lineups, and they're getting out in transition, and they're playing with energy. Anthony Edwards, man, he is pouring his heart and soul into this series, and you can only root for him. But, yeah, I really thought this game would go to 7 just because of the fact that I didn't think Mike Malone would have good defensive lineups out there. I felt like MPJ would shoot his way out of the game, and I felt like the Timberwolves had a little bit more depth. But clearly I was wrong, and I'll admit when I'm wrong. So this looks like the series is probably going to end in 4 or 5, so we'll see who the Nuggets play in the next round.